big deal. Awesome. Okay, so I have a couple of things here. Let me open them up. I have three things I'd like to discuss a little bit. One, Marshall know a little bit about because Chambers brought it up this morning about Andy Frizella's power list. I want to discuss that a little bit. Two, something that came up that I want to ask you guys whether you do it or you not. And third, I want to talk about the book for a second, which I'll lead into here in a second. So first things first, in terms of goal setting. So if you do or do not know who Andy Frisella is, he's kind of, go back a couple of years. He started the MF CEO podcast. You can go on Spotify and find it there. Dude is loud. He is obnoxious, but has grown a very, very, very large business in health and fitness and nutrients and so on and so forth. Successful in that manner. There's a lot that you can take from him, good, bad, and otherwise. Take everything you hear with a grain of salt. But one of the big things that he comes out of there is the power list. And what it is, you know what? I'm just going to read. The power list is pretty much what you'd imagine to be. It's a list. However, it may be very clear about what it isn't. It isn't a to-do list. It isn't a list of habits you already have. It isn't a hack or secret. It's nothing more than a list of 5 critical tasks that you must complete each day to help you make progress toward your biggest goals and dreams in life. So as mechanics, the three of you, the four of us total, Zach and Russell and Robert couldn't make it today, and I'd love to get their input when they listen to this and get their feedback. But do you have a big professional goal that is not something you look at that you're looking at achieving this year, but one that you're looking at achieving in 5 years' time? And do you have a series of micro goals or steps written out to achieve that massive goal? And that's kind of where the power list comes into play. You've got to write things down that you want to achieve today that help you get steps closer to your big, and Darren Hardy calls it the BHAGs, or big, hairy, audacious goal. Do you have a big, hairy, audacious goal like 5 years out? And do you have steps written in how to achieve that between now and then? Stephan.
I mean, a realistic 5-year goal. I mean, if I'd really like to take a shot at running the service department as a service manager to segue into becoming a fixed ops manager in maybe 10 years time. I don't know if it's going to be something that's going to be given to me, right? I'm going to have to go out there and kind of take it. And if that opportunity doesn't exist in my own building, then I have to make that decision when the time comes. Right now, for the short term, I'm really just trying to focus on my stress management to try and keep myself focused when the stress inevitably hits you. Can you still move the ball? Even if it's just an inch at a time, can you still make progression to get some stuff done when the pile starts to get bigger and bigger? One shovel at a time will still move a mountain. It just takes a little bit longer. So short term for me, it's stress management and just trying to manage all the expectations that I have going on right now. And I'm hoping that kind of gives me the grounding I'm going to need to deal with a lot of, customer-based concerns moving into a service manager office. I'll always like the shop. I think I'll always kind of gravitate towards it. I do like still working on cars and getting my hands dirty and showing people that I'm not all talk. So, for me, it's going to be a tough transition if that comes down to it, because you're dressed in a suit usually and you're kind of on the front lines now, and you're not getting in there and helping a tech or an apprentice bust off a set of wheels or holding a wrench when it's a pivotal stretch bolt situation. But stress management for me is definitely number one on my list. I think it'll be number one on my list for a very long time as I start planning a wedding with my fiance and looking forward to the future of getting married and having children. And I got a whirlwind coming at me in a short period of time, so I'm really trying to get myself prepared, but we can only do so much. So for me, stress management, moving into maybe some courses on managing people and expectations to try to give me the basis I'm going to need to move into a service manager position.
Okay. Richard, what's your BHAG?
My goal is fixed ops. My 5-year goal is fixed ops. I I have a pretty senior management team when it comes to service manager, parts manager, and my fixed ops manager. They're all probably going to retire within a year of each other when they all decide to go. That's going to leave a huge vacuum. Everybody kind of knew, like I made it voice that I wanted to be service manager, but I'm looking at beyond that. I'd love to be fixed ops. Do I have small goals set up to meet that? Kind of, but they're not written down. I really should sit down and write them out. A lot of it just comes down to reading, not only like the 7 Habits book, but like Extreme Ownership. What is it? That Seneca book. I think it's Good Leaders Eat Last.
Mm-hmm.
I got a couple of Chris Collins books that I'm reading too. Those are pretty short to run through, but a lot of it comes down to education on my end and my willingness to step up and learn, right? So that's, I mean, you can always improve when it comes to customer handling and stuff like that. Some customers know just how to hit your certain buttons, and those are the ones you got to stop and not react to. That's a big thing, to catch that. But yeah, that's my 5-year goal is fixed ops. But I've been very vocal about it, especially with like my president, and my current fixed ops manager. I've been vocal with him about it. I've went to and sat down and been like, how can I get to your job, right? And he was happy. But no, I went to my fixed ops manager and I told him what I wanted, and I think he took it pretty good because he now wants to mentor me for that position. So, yeah, I do need to write it out. I know what you're talking about with Andy though, and I need to write it out. It's almost the same as like a vision board, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
I think it's the precursor to your vision board, because until you start writing certain things down, you don't understand necessarily where you want to go with it. Because you could say, I'll get Marshall in here in a second, but you can say, you've got a big goal of being fixed ops director, but if you write, even if you don't even think about anything else that's part of it, you're never going to accomplish a goal if you don't have some semblance of what are the things you need to go from here to there. Stephan already talked about, his first step is stress management. And I think as a leader, you need to learn your own stress management, as well as learning how to deflect, defer, and console stress in your team. Learning how to manage stress is a very big deal for service leaders across all platforms. And then you're bringing up, learning, and you've got 2 things going for you. A, you've already voiced it, what your goal is. 2, you've already recognized you need to learn. And C, you've already talked to a person that's, doing what they can to try and mentor you into the position. So you've got a couple of good things going for you, Richard. Marshall, what's your 5-year, your big goal for 5 years from now?
I'll tell you, I'm typically a really good person. I set a lot of goals. I crush a lot of goals. But if you're a person that sets a lot of goals, you figure out like you end up getting multiple times into these places where it's like you got to kind of adapt and reset. Like you think, okay, this is what I want to do, and then you just start hammering these goals out to get there, and then you're at that moment and you're like, that's not what I thought it would be or whatever. So now you got to shift gears and change direction and then reset. And that's over the career, I feel like that's happened a couple of times. I originally was just like, early in my career was like setting goals for making money. I set a goal like, hey, I want to make this much money. I want to make this much money. I want to make this much money. In my career, my main big goal was I wanted to get to 6 figures. I wanted to make 100K. That was always my goal. Like early on, I set this goal like, hey, my goal is to make 100K. And then I just would chip away at that. Like at first it was like, hey, I got to make 60. Next year I got to make this. And then I would figure out how much overtime I'd have to work, yada, yada, yada. And slowly work my way there. And I think probably like 5 or 6 years ago, I hit that 100K, and then it was just like, well, fuck, what now?
Mm-hmm.
You know? So then I was like, well, I'm going to set a 5 year goal for service manager. And then that took a year. So I pushed hard on it. I reached out to people, and then I did service manager for a year. And it wasn't quite what I expected it to be. And so what I realized that feel like I'm put on this earth is to train mechanics. So I kind of backpedaled a little bit, and then I got back into that because that's what I enjoy doing. I feel like I can, I could still make a lot of money, and I could still train apprentices and still be pretty successful at that. So like right now I'm at this road where like, because originally it was like I had a 10-year goal for a VP position at the company I work at, because we have a VP that came from a porter position. He started as a porter and worked his way up to VP, and not to take it away from him because the dude's a baller, I thought, well, shit, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
If he can do it, I can do it. You know what I mean? And that's the kind of mindset I have. So originally that was my goal, and that's why I pushed the service manager, and I was like, okay, I'm going to try to get service manager and then try to do that for like 5 years, and then go to branch manager and yada yada, and just keep pushing as hard as I can until either I hit a wall or I get VP. That was my goal. So, but then I backed up and punted because like I don't enjoy the back of the house. Like I did it, and I'm just like, it's not. I'm not really into it. So now I'm at this road where now I've got to reset. Get my head back down and refocus. I know like right now I ended 24, I have to be Kenworth master. So right now I've got to set some goals for training so that I can meet my goal for Kenworth master at the end of 24. So right now I'm in the process of putting all my goals, reorganizing them, and that way I can get back to focused on what I need to hammer out.
Awesome. I think what that identifies is another thing is it's okay to have goals and then realize that you need to reset those goals. The key here though is you achieved not necessarily, you didn't achieve a long-term goal, you achieved a medium tier goal at service management and realized that pathway isn't where you wanted to go. You experienced it for long enough to go, this isn't for me. That there is nothing wrong with that. The challenge is when, especially through coaching, when technicians tell me, I have these goals, and it's like, well, why do you keep changing your goals? Well, it's not for me. Well, how long did you marinate in it? How long did you work for to get to it? And once you got there, what did you do? Well, it wasn't for me. Well, you didn't even get to the goal. When folks tell me they have goals and don't meet the goal and then change what the goal is, they're being lazy. This is the biggest challenge that mechanics have that come to me. It's like they keep moving the goalpost because they're either lazy or incapable or haven't learned, some of the root needs the root personality characteristics you need to have in order to meet goals. You need to be patient. You need to be persistent at achieving whatever goal it is. And you need to get within about 98% of that goal for the most part before I believe it's about okay to maybe change it. You don't necessarily have to achieve it, and this is my one caveat here. If it takes you 5 years to achieve a small goal, maybe you're not putting enough effort in, or maybe the goal isn't actually a small goal. Right? A constant state of self-reflection. For me, I want to get paid to speak. That's my lofty 5-year goal. I want to get paid to speak, and I don't want to have to rely on any employment or any other income at all. I'd love to have multiple sources of income, but my 5-year goal is to get paid to speak year round. Now I have a lot of things that I need to learn and do in order to get there. A lot of the folks like Andy Frisella and more, and Simon Sinek, Gary Vee, these people took in some circumstances decades in order to get to a position where they're getting paid for their expertise and they're getting paid to speak in front of people. So learning how to speak well is one. 2, being able to carry conversations well is another. 3, getting educated in ways that is actually going to be helpful to more than just a small niche worth of people. Because I think the 4 of us, and when Russell's here or Zach's here or Robert's here and we're having a conversation, we're talking to a lot of people, but we're not talking to a lot of people, if you know what I mean. There's a lot of people that the messages that we talk about can be listened to by, not just being a mechanic, because the position itself, in a productive manner, there's lots of people out there that are productive in their roles and aren't mechanics. There's a lot of things that we talk about that I could potentially talk to. So I have to learn how to speak well. I have to learn how to, and all of that comes from learning. All 4 of us have said the same basic thing. We need a lot of learning to do to get to our goals. Marshall said, I need to learn and do training to get my Kenworth master. Stephan is learning on stress management. Richard's, mentoring to be fixed ops director and all of the P&L statements and reading and all of that comes with it. I got to learn how to speak well and learn how to read a room and things of that nature, body language. We're all talking about learning. So I asked the question, like, what are your goals and what are you minor steps to get to those big goals, whether the big goals or medium-sized goals, whatever the case would be. We all have to learn. And secondly, we should be all writing that stuff down. So if you happen to be out there listening and you don't have a big goal, you need to get one. And 2, you need to write it down. And 3, you need to write down the steps that you believe that you need to execute on to accomplish it, and then start executing. So it's a 4-step process to that big goal. So awesome. Thank you all for your input.